The best thing you can say about today's subject matter is that they tried, and that they did not fail miserably. Though how much of a success the final product happens to be is another story entirely. Space Attack, released in 1982 for the Atari 2600 video computer system from M Network, a retooling of an old Intellivision game, no doubt, in this case Space Battle, is a shooting game mixed with some light strategy elements, emphasis on the word light, where enemy fleets are fast approaching your mothership and you have to fend them off by sending your own squadrons against them. Defeat all 6 enemy groups and you win. Fail and you don't. Pretty simple on paper, at least. You begin on this radar screen, where 3 enemy squadrons will appear on screen and make their way towards your home base. Space Attack is not a game that you pick up and play. At first glance, without knowing any specific commands or functions, you have no way of knowing what to make of this screen. Those little dots and that sort of thing. You just sit there fiddling with the joystick, watching some of these dots get lit up, and then the screen eventually explodes. This is one of those games that made more sense on a television and is rather unique controller. So here's what you're supposed to do. You pick an approaching enemy group by pushing the stick downwards to highlight a target, and then while holding the joystick in either the upper, left, or right directions, you press the button to launch one of your 3 available squadrons to intercept the targeted group. It's worth noting that only one squadron could be sent against a single target. When one of your squadrons reaches their target, push the joystick to switch over to a first-person shooting view, where you control your targeting reticule to aim your weapons and eliminate the enemy fighters head-on. The left block number represents the number of enemy ships left to kill off in the fleet, while the right block number represents the number of ships left in your current squadron. A neat trick is that if you destroy an enemy ship, the blast will launch 3 fireballs that could potentially kill off any unfortunate wingmen, so with proper timing you could scratch a few bogeys with a single shot. Enemies will naturally fire back, and if an enemy shot hits your crosshairs, you lose a ship, and if you lose all your ships, your squadron is lost. Space Attack ends with either the successful destruction of all enemy squadrons, or if said squadron reaches your mothership and eventually takes it over or blow it up, or whatever the context may be. There are no alternate game modes, though difficulty switches will determine the difficulty of the dogfights, as well as toggle whether action on radar pauses while you're in shooting mode, or if things continue at a slower pace, which means that if another squadron intercepts the enemy while you're busy with another fleet, that squadron will attack on its own, though for every 4 enemies defeated, a ship is lost in the squadron in question, which makes things precarious because enemy forces have 6 fleets to attack your mothership, while you only have 3, and once they're all gone, it's nighty-night. Space Attack is an interesting premise that didn't quite reach its potential in this limited 2600 format that I'd imagine its Intellivision source material achieved. For what it's worth, the shooting bits were more than fine and control over the crosshair was fairly solid, though it does suffer from some limited difficulty options. You're either blasting enemy ships like butter or they're very trigger happy, which makes things difficult to dodge. A happy medium in between would have been nice to have. Also, knowing how the radar works is key to doing anything in Space Attack. Otherwise, you have no clue on what to do or what's going on, and you'll eventually move on to something else. Once you do figure things out, it's not such a bad deal, but it's a case of wishing you could do more than what's on offer. The graphics in Space Attack are nothing to write home about. You got a very basic looking radar screen that looks the part if nothing else, and the shooting segments are nothing more than flying saucer things, fireballs, and those 1970 block numbers. As for the sound effects, they're tame enough for the radar bits and also stock enough for the shooter bits. Not much else to say there. Overall, Space Attack is a high-concept game that has a bit of a learning curve to really get into. The premise is promising and the shooter bits aren't too bad, but figuring out the radar is the stone wall that some people are not so willing to overcome. I wouldn't necessarily call Space Attack a bad game. I think once you figure out its quirks, there's some fun to be had here, but whether that actually happens is another story entirely. Good idea, questionable execution. Your mileage will naturally vary. Though it's worth mentioning that this was going to be a Battlestar Galactica game and the scenario would have been you defending the Galactica against Cylon Raiders. Interesting factoid? Sure. Would it have mattered? Probably not.